The Bible is a book like none other. 66 books, 1,500 years, written by dozens of people, 3 different languages. It's an exciting book. It's an inspiring book. It's a confusing book. At times, it's bizarre. It is a book like none other. It's a story, of course, of God and his people. But for many years, hundreds of years, in fact, it seemed to many as if that story had no clear plot. What was it leading to? What was it about? It seemed like just a bunch of unconnected stories. It was a story, but it was in shadow. There was confusion. It was as if the Bible writers were humming a song that we didn't know the words to. Or it was as if we were listening to an orchestra, but only one instrument at a time, the viola, and then the horn, and then each of them individually, but we didn't know, we couldn't put it all together to hear the beautiful symphony. And then one day, all of that began to change. Not immediately at Jesus' birth. Yes, the light began to dawn, but even after his birth, there was still much confusion. And then his death came, and it threw his disciples and followers into even more confusion. I think the light really began to shine on that Sunday morning when he resurrected. That first day of the week was really the first day of a new era, of a new dawning, when that story became clear. That tune that was humming, the words were sung out loud, the orchestra all played together, and we could hear the notes and hear the melody and see it all for what it was. What we had missed all along became plain. And if there ever is a moment in history that I wish I could go back and just observe, it would be that resurrection morning. And yes, I'd love to be there at the tomb, but if I could have been on the road to Emmaus and heard that Bible study the first time when all that had been murky and shadows was made light and made plain, I would give anything. I would give anything. Let's read it again together. Luke 24. Starting with verse 25, this is page 1024, if you're using one of the Bibles under the seats. Then Jesus said to them, O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken, ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses, and how many of the prophets? All the prophets. He expounded to them in how much of the scripture? All the scriptures, the things concerning himself. The light began to dawn, and that which was shadow was made light. Now the story had a plot, and it had a hero, and it had a central figure. All became clear. And what I'd like to do with you this morning, I'm not Jesus, but I want to give you my best effort at that Bible study on the road to Emmaus. I want to start at Moses, and let's go through all the prophets. And let's see how all of these things are one story pointing to Jesus at the center of it all. Are you with me? We're going to have to go fast. I don't have as much time as Jesus had on the road to Emmaus, but we're going to go quick. So let's get started. In Genesis, the first book of Moses, Jesus, of course, is later to be revealed, the creative word, the one through whom everything is made. But there in Genesis 3:15, he is the prophesied woman seed who will crush the serpent's head. And when Adam and Eve are cast out, he is the covering, the skins that cover their shame and their nakedness. In Genesis 22, he is the beloved Son, the only begotten Son, whom Abraham sacrifices out of his love for God. He is the seed of Abraham, through whom all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Later on in Genesis, he is Jacob's ladder that connects heaven and earth, upon which the angels of God ascend and descend. He is the connection, the bridge between God himself and sinful humanity. In Genesis 49, in that prophecy, he is the scepter that will not depart from Judah, the lawgiver that will come from Shiloh. In Exodus, he is the burning bush, the I am that I am, before whom Moses takes off his sandals and bows in worship. He is the slain Passover lamb whose blood provides protection and salvation. He is the door through which those who enter are saved. He is the way in and the way out. He's the water from the rock and the manna from heaven. He's the tabernacle of God in the wilderness, through whom God will dwell among his people. On the outside, that tabernacle is covered in furs just like any other tent, but on the inside, it's gold and divinity. It is God's presence. In Leviticus, he is not only the slain lamb, but he is the priest who takes that blood into the very presence of God and makes atonement for God's people. In Numbers, he is the serpent on the pole, that if anyone who has been bitten looks, they find salvation and protection and healing. He is also that prophet, the one prophesied by Balaam, the star who will come out of Jacob, the scepter who shall rise out of Israel. In Deuteronomy, he is the one that Moses said, another shall come like me, whom God will send in your midst. You shall hear him. And in Joshua and Judges, he is the captain of the Lord's host, the messenger of the Lord who directs God's people. He is also the descendant of Rahab, the Gentile prostitute, through whom God saves his people. In the book of Ruth, he's the descendant of a Moabite woman who is more faithful than the Jews. He is a descendant of the kinsman redeemer Boaz. And in 1 and 2 Samuel, he is like that great grandson of Ruth and Boaz, David, the shepherd king, who is one after God's own heart, who puts himself and his life on the line to care for his sheep. And in Kings and Chronicles, he is that prophesied son of David, the anointed son through whom God will establish his throne and his kingdom over Israel forever. In Nehemiah and Ezra, he is that prophet standing on the wall who refuses to come down from his great work, even though it may cost him his life. Jesus stayed there on the cross, refused to come down so that he could give his life for us. In the book of Esther, he is like Esther, who goes before the king as an intercessor for her people and says, if I perish, I perish. In the book of Job, he is that intercessor that Job longs for. Job cries out for one who would stand between him and God. He trusted in one who is his redeemer, whom he should see at last on the earth. In the Psalms, Jesus is that suffering one who cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? The one who is pierced and the one who is slain. But he is also the one to whom God will say, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies the footstool. He is the Lord of David, whom the Lord says to him, sit on my throne. He is also the one who later generations will say, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. In the book of Proverbs, he is wisdom itself, who was established from everlasting, by whom, through whom God created all that we see and all that we know. In Ecclesiastes, he is the one shepherd who gives words to the wise and words to the scholars. In the Song of Solomon, he's the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valleys. He is the one whose banner over us is love. And in the book of Isaiah, he is the Son of the Virgin, Emmanuel. He is the child who is born unto us, who is given to us, upon whom the government will be upon his shoulder. His name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The increase of his government and peace, there will be no end. And the throne of David will be what he rules over. But he is also the suffering servant who bears our griefs and carries our sorrows, who is wounded for our transgressions, who is bruised for our iniquities, and by whose stripes we are healed. In Jeremiah, he is that branch of David who was prophesied, a branch of righteousness, a king who shall reign and prosper and execute judgment and righteousness, who shall be called by the name, not the Lord his righteousness, but the Lord our righteousness. In Nehemiah, Lamentations, he is the prophet who weeps over the city, through whom God's mercies are renewed. In Ezekiel, he is the shepherd, God himself, who is searching for his lost sheep, who will bring them back and deliver them. He is the servant David, the shepherd who was prophesied and longed for, but he is also the one who will take the heart of stone and take it and change it into a heart of flesh. In the book of Daniel, he is the stone cut out without human hands that strikes the image, that shatters all the other kingdoms and turns them to dust, but grows to be a mountain that fills the whole earth. He is the fourth man in the fire there with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, one that Nebuchadnezzar says is like a son of the gods. But also in Daniel 7, in that vision, he is the Son of Man who comes to the Ancient of Days and is given a kingdom over all people, nations, and languages. He's given a kingdom that is everlasting. His kingdom is the one kingdom that will never be destroyed. And what could we say about all of the prophets? Hosea, Jesus is that faithful husband who is married and loves devotedly an unfaithful wife, a woman given to harlotry. He is the one who goes and buys back his wife after she has sold herself in her sin, and buys her back so that she can be his and he can continue to love her. What more could we say of Joel and the one who pours out the Spirit, of Amos and Obadiah and the coming king, of Jonah and his 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, and Jesus and his 3 nights in the heart of the earth, of Micah and a messenger of salvation, of Nahum and Habakkuk and Haggai, who said that there would be a desire of all nations that would come. And when he comes to the temple, he will cause the glory of the latter temple to exceed the glory of Solomon's temple. And of Zephaniah, and a God who sings over his people. and rejoices in their salvation. But I think we will close with what I believe Jesus closed with in that Bible study. Malachi, the last of the prophets, who prophesied a messenger who would prepare the way for God himself to come. God himself, the Lord whom they seek, would come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant in whom they delight. Behold, he is coming, Malachi said. He is coming. He is on his way. And then in the next chapter he says, the Son of Righteousness is going to dawn and bring righteousness upon the earth. And so, when Matthew and Mark and Luke and John picked up their pens, one of the things that they wanted us to understand was that the story they were telling us was not a new story. It was just a story that had been hummed all along, and now they were singing the words, and we could hear the tune, and we could see where it was going. We could understand the narrative arc. And so they began pulling all of these threads and telling us how Jesus has been there. He has been the center. It's been the same story all along. So Matthew introduces him as the son of David, as the son of Abraham. He introduces him as Emmanuel, God with us, the one who will save his people. He says, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and upon those who sat in the region of the shadow of death, light has dawned. What we couldn't see before has been made clear. And now we can see it ourselves. I remember that moment when I first got these. And I remember walking out of the optometrist's office and looking at the world around me, and all of those green fuzzy blobs that I had always seen on the horizon, I said, you mean everybody's been able to see those leaves all along? They've always been there. And that's what Matthew and Mark and Luke and John are trying to do, is trying to put these glasses on for us so that we can see what has been there all along. The one who has been there all along. These echoes of anticipation. What was in black and white, what was in shadows, is now in color. And Matthew says he came preaching this kingdom of heaven and saying that he was its king. He came healing the lame and the sick. Mark, at the end of his gospel, puts even in the words of the centurion that truly this man was the Son of God. Yes, he was healing and teaching. Luke tells us he is like the shepherd who goes and finds the lost sheep and brings him back and rejoices. He's like the woman who finds the coin, like the father who celebrates over his lost son. And then John tells us that he's the Word. The very Word through which God created the world. Always been there. He was God and he's with God. He is the one through whom all things have been made. And John tells us that Word became flesh, tabernacled among us. God pitched his tent among us. And he says, that story about Abraham sacrificing his son was not a story about Abraham and his love for God. It was actually an echo of a story of God's love for the world, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. And John tells us that Jesus is the I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the sheep gate, the good shepherd, the resurrection and the life, the way, the truth, the life, the true vine. But John also tells us that Jesus is not all of those things. He simply also is just the I am, the self-existent one, the Yahweh, who appeared to Moses in that burning bush. I am who I am. I don't even need a description. I don't even need a qualification. I am self-existent. I am who I am. So 7 times, Jesus simply says in the Gospel of John, I am. I am the juice that brings life, the bread that brings salvation. I am the resurrection and the life, the way, the truth, and the life. So when John comes to the end of his gospel, he's trying so hard for us simply to see with glasses, to observe, to notice what has been there all along. He quotes Pilate, who says, "Behold the man." And this is John's prayer. This is his plea. This is his longing, that we would simply pay attention and notice and see and look at and behold Jesus. That yes, we would see him on the cross. Yes, we would see him at the resurrection. But above all, we would see him for all that he is. That we would behold him. And we could keep going, couldn't we? We could behold him in the book of Acts, where he is the only name under heaven by which men could be saved. We could behold him in Acts, where he is the author and giver of life. In Romans, where he's the new Adam and the gift of God that brings eternal life, the demonstration of God's love. In Corinthians, where he is our righteousness and our sanctification and our redemption, where he is the one who knew no sin, but has been made to be sin for us. We could talk about him in Ephesians and Colossians and Timothy and Titus and Thessalonians. Hebrews, the priest after the order of Melchizedek, the perfect sacrifice once and for all. The letters of Peter and the letters of John and Jude. But maybe we should stop by talking about him in the book of Revelation, where he is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the firstborn from the dead, the King of kings and the Lord of lords, the one who has white hair and eyes like flames of fire, who holds stars in his hand, the one who stands at the door and knocks. Yes, he's a conquering lion, but also he's a slain lamb. He's a bridegroom coming for his bride, the one he has prepared for himself, the one who will dwell with them and be their light. He's the root of David, but he's also the offspring of David. He is the coming one. Yes, the coming one. He's the story. The hero, the plot, the center. Every book whispers his name. In the law, he's promised. In the prophets, he's prophesied and expected. In the Psalms, he's worshiped. In the Gospels, he's revealed. In the epistles, he's explained. And in Revelation, he's exalted and said to be the one who is coming with clouds, and every eye will see him. Behold, John says in Revelation, behold the one who is coming. And so my prayer for you, for myself here today, is that we would simply do that we would behold him. There are a million things in our lives that vie for our attention. Our whole economy seems to be geared around fighting, trying to get your attention. But does Jesus have your attention? Have you spent time? Do you spend time? Do I spend time simply beholding appreciating, admiring, worshiping, being grateful for who he is? My appeal, all you faithful, Let us behold him. He's the center. He is everything. Let's give him the attention, the place that he deserves.